Dr. Tan Woo Meng.
Question 3.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the substance of my response today will also effectively cover a similar parliamentary question filed by Ms. Herting-Roo for a subsequent sitting. If Ms. Her is satisfied with the response today, then she may wish to withdraw her question after this session. Sir, the Ministry of Finance uses data from various government agencies to determine the eligibility of households for the GST vouchers or GSTV U Save rebates. This way, Singaporeans need not apply for the rebate and will automatically receive the rebates in their utilities accounts. The data used include the identities of the owners and occupiers of HDB flats, the number and type of properties they own, and their citizenship and living status. The relevant government agencies have processes in place to keep their databases updated. For additional assurance, MOF also engages an external auditor to conduct an annual audit on the allotment logic for U Save rebates to make sure that households are given the correct amount of rebates. For the U Save payments that were the subject of AGO's report, no errors were detected during these prior checks. One of the eligibility conditions for the U Save rebates is that the household must include a living Singapore citizen. From AGO's observations, some households were given rebates that they were not eligible for, as the sole Singapore citizen household member had already passed away as of the date used to determine eligibility. The error arose as there was a time lag in some deceased citizens' living status data due to legal processing of records after their deaths had taken place. For example, the date used to determine eligibility was 1st December. The citizen's death on 30th November, that's a day before, might not have been updated in agency's database until after 1st December, as some time is taken to document and process the death record. So the household was tagged as being eligible. By the time of the AGO audit, the updated data showed the date of death as of 30th November, and the household concerned would not have been eligible. While we strive to keep our data updated as soon as possible, there are practical constraints. This time lag issue affected about 3,100 households, or about 0.3% of all households living in HDB flats. There were another 23 cases of U Save rebates given, even though there were no Singaporean citizens in the household due to errors in agencies' databases. Time lag and data errors were the two sources of errors found during the AGO audit. On Dr. Tan's question about those who qualify after initial assessment, eligibility is determined on a predetermined cutoff date. Those who do not qualify on that date will not be eligible for the relevant round of rebates. However, should their circumstances change after that date, such that they subsequently meet the eligibility criterion, they will be included in the later disbursements of the rebates, provided, of course, that they remain eligible at the next cutoff date. As for Dr. Tan's question, whether there are eligible households who have missed out on the U Save rebates, we have not found any system flaws resulting in this. Any feedback or appeals regarding eligible households who may not have received their rebates is investigated to ensure that eligible households are not left out. MOF has commenced recovery of the rebates given to ineligible households. We are working with data agencies to tighten our operational processes to ensure the use of latest available data to administer the GSTV U Save scheme.
Dr. Tan Woo Meng.
I thank the Minister for her detailed answer. I've got one supplementary question. Sir, some of my Clementi residents have observed that sometimes the GSTV U Save rebate for a particular month might not be credited in time for the SP Group invoice for that month. So for example, we've met Clementi residents who for the April invoice by SP Group received the April rebate, but for the July invoice had not yet seen the July rebate in that July invoice. Can I ask MOF whether the ministry tracks whether the GSTV U Save rebates are distributed in a timely manner and in particular implemented in the service providers such as SP Group so that they arrive in a timely way for families who need that help? I ask this because some Clementi families have observed that when a family is facing cash flow problems in a difficult time with a rising cost of living, when the rebate that they expected to see in that particular month doesn't show up in the SP Group invoice, it comes as a surprise and a worry. We will help these families on the ground, but we hope agencies can close the loop with SP Group as well. Thank you.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, as a general rule, the rebates are given or allocated or credited into the household's accounts in the months that they are disbursed. So if there are specific instances like this where that is not the case, then I would encourage the member or other members who encounter this to raise this with us, and we will see what is the cause. I mean, sometimes it could be, for example, that the resident opened the account after, the crediting date. I mean, things like that on the ground, but those will be dealt with by appeal.
Ms. Hertingru.
Thank you, Minister, for the response and on my PQ that was filed for tomorrow. I take the point that there can be limitations on how quickly the data can be updated. Because as the Minister explained, sometimes there's a bit of a time lag. But given that there is going to be some clawbacks and reimbursement steps to be taken, and also it probably is quite a stressful situation for the households involved when they previously received. When they received the rebates and now they're getting some clawback. I'm just wondering, are there any steps that can be taken to prevent, to prevent this from recurring again? After all, over 3,000 households that were involved, and what are the steps that are being discussed between the agencies to prevent this from happening again? The second point is, the Minister stated that action has already been taken to recover the sums that were erroneously disbursed. I'm just wondering, is there a timeline for this to take place? And how far is MOF going at the moment? How far is MOF through this process? How many households have actually had the amounts clawed back from them? And I think the last point really is out of there were 3,166 ineligible households identified. Is there any further action that will be taken to identify whether there are any other households involved in this, or that's just the number of households is already taken as 3,166? Thank you.
I thank the member for her supplementary question. Let me deal with the last one first, because she asked, are we just taking it at this figure? As I mentioned in my reply earlier, the eligible households was taken at a particular date, and then by the time the AGO audit was conducted, that would be a subsequent time, and the databases would have been updated. So it's essentially comparing what was the database as at the cutoff date with the updated database. So I think that sort of circumscribed the numbers, and that's how we were able to arrive at these numbers. Then I think the other question she asked was, given that there is a clawback and it can be stressful for families, are there steps which can be taken to prevent this from happening? I mean, we would obviously do our best, but perhaps it would be useful for members to understand the process. I mean, the process is the agency that has the information on living status, whether you're born or whether you have passed on, is ICA. And ICA will only have that. ICA then passes that to HDB, who will then check who's owner living there, whether it's a tenancy, occupier, and then you pass information to MOF. So the initial part is ICA receiving the information, and really that information comes from the family. And if you want to speed that up, you also have to be sensitive to the family, because you can't say your family member is dead, please go and file your documents now. That would not be sensitive either. So I think we do have to be sensitive to the families and bear in mind that it may be unavoidable that there is a bit of a time lag. Of course, we will remind them as soon as possible. And of course, if it comes to the attention of HDB or any of the agencies, we will likewise remind them. So we will do as much as we can to tighten the process, but bearing in mind that you must also give some time to the residents to be able to update their records. And then in terms of the action taken to recover, what is the timeline? As soon as possible. The member asked, do I have the exact figures now, how many have been recovered or not? I don't have the exact figures at the moment. It's still in process, but I think the member can have the assurance of knowing that we are doing this as soon as we can.